Come see us on tour in Dallas, Austin, Baltimore, Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, New York, Atlantic City, Levittown, Cohoes, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for the link for the cheapest tickets. They found out through auditing USAID, which is an unbelievable slush fund of corruption, criminality, and coups, deep state power to destabilize democracies. They also found out that Politico and the New York Times was getting money from USAID. The government was paying them money. The United States government. According to the Daily Mail, Politico swept up in USAID scandal as records show the government paid $8.2 million to left-leaning. They paid them $8.2 million. I'd like to get some of that money. I've got a news site. Left-leaning news outlet Politico was paid a staggering $8.2 million in government subsidies uncovered amid Elon Musk. Now, do you see why the media has their hair on fire over him doing this? Now do you see? The Department of Government Efficiency is in the process of canceling the payments from several government agencies, including the embattled USAID. The White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that the money given to Politico was spent on essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the taxpayers' dime, because nobody wanted to subscribe to Politico. Huh. So here she is. Let's listen.
I was made aware of the funding from USAID to media outlets, including Politico, who I know has a seat in this room. And I can confirm that the more than 8 million taxpayer dollars that have gone to essentially subsidizing subscriptions to Politico on the American taxpayer's dime will no longer be happening. The DOGE team is working on canceling those payments now. Again, this is a whole of government effort to ensure that we are going line by line when it comes to the federal government's books. And this president and his team are making decisions across the board on, do these receipts serve the interests of the American people? Is this a good use of the American taxpayers' money? If it is not, that funding will no longer be sent abroad, and American taxpayers will see significant savings because of that effort. Thank you.
Details of the spend emerged amid scrutiny of the public finances by Musk's DOGE, which has shut down the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. Politico received $44,000 from USAID just last year, but was given millions more from other federal agencies, public records show. Most notably, the Department of Health and Human Services had $1.37 million in obligations. Really? Really? Well, my friends are going, my shitlib friends in Hollywood say, well, nice going, Jimmy. I guess we'll just have to wait for a cure for cancer since they cut the money to an agency that has nothing to do with it. This is obviously a huge waste of taxpayer money, Musk wrote on Twitter. It is understood that much of the agency's spending is on Politico's B2B service, Political Pro, which offers nonpartisan real-time intelligence personalized to their area of policy focus, according to the platform. Subscriptions can cost around $10,000 a year per online reports, meaning the government would have to have shelled out more than 800 accounts. Leavitt warned that DOGE is in on the process of pulling the plug on all payments. It could spell further disasters for Politico, whose staffers yesterday found out that they had not been paid. The outlet stated that the missed payments were due to a technical issue. However, speculation quickly began to swirl that the crackdown on public spending was to blame. Really? So remember what Politico used to say? Hunter Biden stories, Russian disinformation. Dozens of former intel officials say. Yeah, you're supposed to debunk them, but that's not what Politico does. USAID money. Look at all the money. Total money awarded, $8.1 million. So Politico were receiving money, millions of dollars from the USAID. Then they used that money to push endless anti-Trump propaganda and intentionally deceive the American people. In other words, the Democrats were using our tax dollars to fund their fake news empire. Lee Fong, friend of the show, says these funds... So Bill Ackman says it's shocking that, but perhaps not surprising, that the Biden-Harris administration used USAID, the agency whose purpose is to administer the funding of international aid, to fund left-wing media organizations that attack the administration's opponents. These funds included payments during the first Trump administration, and the actual money from USAID to Politico was entirely for subscriptions and totaled $44,000. That's peanuts. Please, for the love of God, look at the details before tweeting. That's what Lee Fong says. Politico is not being funneled cash by USAID, says Isaac Saul. Politico has a very expensive pro subscription that is an entire platform for tracking legislation, votes, lawsuits, reporting, and elite legislative analysis. These subscriptions cost north of $10,000. Private sector CEOs and lobbyists pay for them, as do government workers. I've subscribed and used them before. They are amazing tools for keeping an eye on the government. Politico sells these premium trade pubs to agencies, government agencies like the private sector. They want to work on the best information possible. They, meaning CEOs and private corporations of the government, wouldn't pay if Politico wasn't producing value. Forcing the cancellation of these subscriptions is anti-capitalist nonsense that is going to make our government dumber, not smarter. But more importantly, it isn't some massive corrupt scheme. Politico does invaluable reporting in these trade publications, so people say. Chernovitz says Democratic government agencies definitely don't waste taxpayer money, and they'd never become a source of revenue for a friendly media outlet as a way to entangle their affairs. Nope. Would be unspeakable to imagine this. USAID does in fact fund journalism all over the world in a real way. Yeah, what they do is they create propaganda outlets that push CIA talking points, like they do in Ukraine right now, like Vox Media that did a segment just on me and said that the truth I was telling about Ukraine was misinformation. That's what USAID does. That's how they fund journalism in a real way. So he says they do that with strings attached to tell reporters what to cover and how to shape public opinion. It's all about propaganda and regime change propaganda. That's what it's about. They don't care about journalism. This deserves scrutiny, but political subscriptions money conspiracy is crap. That's what he says. That's what he says. So, the U.S. government gave the New York Times tens of millions of dollars over just the past 5 years, despite paying relatively little money to the New York Times in years preceding 2021. For instance, in August 2024, the United States government awarded $4.1 million to the New York Times. The bulk of the funds came from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services at $26.9 million, followed by the National Science Foundation at $19 million. Really? It's good that we're finding all this out. I think it's great. So now we find out that the government's funding journalism. Come see us on tour in Dallas, Austin, Baltimore, Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, New York, Atlantic City, Levittown, Cohoes, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for the link for the cheapest tickets.